Hey everybody, this is Jeff, back from vacation and coming to you from Good News Gatherings Ministry Center. When our governor lifted the travel ban, we flew our son Reed home from New York City. Fortunately, he was able to leave the city before the rioting began. When we traveled to North Carolina and then visited our niece, who's a Marine stationed at Camp Lejeune, there I discovered a fascinating story about a special group of Marines in World War II that will teach us critical lessons about service, sacrifice, and justice in next year's Memorial Day service. I'm already looking forward to teaching that lesson. Then we headed on to Florida to spend time with relatives on both sides of the family. It was a great time, and it reminded me of just what a special blessing family is. It also reminded me of a verse that we used as a focus verse to kick off this year's theme word, the word family. It's a verse we begin every Class 101 with, and it's a verse penned by the Apostle Paul to a church that he planted in the city of Ephesus. Paul spent over 3 years in Ephesus getting the church up and running and firmly established. Paul had grown to love this church family, and in Ephesians 2:19 he wrote this. He said, "You," and he's talking here to each person in the church. He said, "You are a member of God's very own family." You're a member, a part of, an integral aspect of what? Not just the human family or even your own nuclear family, but God's very own family. As Christians, we are part of the family of the Creator of the universe, the one who loved us and sent His Son to die for our sins so that we could become a member of His very own family. But Paul's not done. He goes on to say, you are a member of God's very own family, and you belong in God's household with every other Christian. He says, you belong. What a great word. Belonging evokes this sense of comfort, of peace. When you say, I belong here, there's a feeling that I'm accepted. I can be me because I'm among my people. You belong where? He says, in God's household. This isn't really a reference to a physical space or a building. It is a reference to the togetherness or the community of believers. You belong in community with every other Christian. Now, we as Christians belong in community with other Christians. Now, this isn't just Paul offering a piece of advice or a suggestion, kind of like, hey guys, if you have time or if you can fit it into your schedule, this being a part of a community of faith is something you should at least consider. No. He says you belong in God's household with every other Christian. It was a fact of life in the early church. We see it in the way the very first description of the church found in Acts 2:42 through 47. Notice what it says. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Now that word fellowship indicates community. It indicates togetherness. I heard a pastor once say that the best way to think of the word fellowship is two fellas on a ship. That entails two obvious realities. First, you're in it together. And second, you're heading in the same direction. The early church was devoted to fellowship. They were in it together, and they were heading in the same direction. And the passage goes on to state the obvious. It says, all the believers were together. It's as if the author is saying, if you didn't get it the first time, here it is again. They were together. And then he follows up with examples. He says every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all people. And what was the result of this fellowship, this community, this family built on the bedrock of faith? It says this, "And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." The early church grew. It reached out. It expanded. It impacted people's lives for Jesus Christ. God blessed this fellowship of faith because he knew that others could come, and regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of their baggage, they could find love, acceptance, community, family, home. One of the hardest things about the last 3 months is that our church family couldn't be together. Our family of faith couldn't gather together physically to engage with the apostles' teaching, fellowship, the breaking of bread, and prayer. Now, don't get me wrong. A number of positive things have come out of this time of separation. People rediscovered the importance of family and spending time together. Our online presence has expanded exponentially and is reaching people that live outside our ministry area. Many of our life groups and ministry teams met online, and a number of people have hosted watch parties in their homes. I've heard stories of random acts of kindness as members of our church family have reached out to their neighbors. Our outreaches to our healthcare professionals and first responders gave them much needed encouragement. And this Saturday, June 13th, we're reaching out to our community again with another service project. As many of you know, an interesting phenomenon has occurred as a result of the coronavirus lockdown. In May, over 4,000 cars jammed the streets of uptown Hillsborough for a community cruise-in. It was a way for people to get out of the house, connect with others, and still social distance at the same time. Another cruise-in has been scheduled for this coming Saturday, and the G&G family has volunteered to help make this a positive event by offering to pick up trash in the uptown area from 7 to 11 p.m. Now, if you're willing to serve in this way, then please email us at info@goodnewsgathering.org or call the church office at 937-393-5383 and sign up for one of the 1-hour time slots. We'll meet at the little park located next to the city building where the old Colony Theater used to be. Our extension team will have trash bags, gloves, and if you want one, masks. It's going to be a great time to serve alongside your church family, interact with people who may not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and serve our community. And I don't know about you, but I'm so excited that on Sunday we'll be having our first public gathering since March 15th. Now, things will be a little different for a while. We've outlined some of these differences in a church-wide email and a letter that went out to the G&G family this week. If you haven't received the email or the letter, please contact the church office and we'll make sure it gets to you. Also, on Saturday evening, we're going to be giving you a Facebook Live tour of the Ministry Center so you can see how things are shaping up for our first service back. So stay tuned on Saturday evening for this Facebook Live event. Now, I understand that everyone in the G&G family will not be returning this Sunday. Some with small children will choose to wait until our Next Gen ministry reopens on July 5th. And some, due to health reasons, will choose to continue participating in our services online. It is important that each person exercises their own judgment regarding when they feel comfortable returning to public services. You are responsible for your own safety. Obviously, G&G cannot guarantee a germ-free or virus-free environment. So please, if you are in an at-risk age group or have health issues that make you susceptible to this virus, use your best judgment as to when you should begin attending. But let me say this. I want to address a phrase that I've been hearing a lot lately that I find a bit troubling. I've heard Christians describe the church as entering a, quote, new normal. And while I understand that our use of digital media has many obvious benefits, I want to make sure that our church family doesn't begin to view fellowship through a screen as the new normal. It will never be normal for Christians not to meet in person. Our normal is described in the biblical passages we discussed earlier. This period of separation is not the new normal. It is and always will be abnormal, and it must be viewed as such. In fact, the early Christians viewed meeting face to face so critical that when they were persecuted, they met in caverns dug out of the rock beneath the city of Rome called the catacombs. Our digital efforts must be seen as a temporary compromise to an extraordinary health crisis and not a new normal or a long-term convenience. Now, I've also been asked to address both the fear that this virus has produced in both our culture and the church, and the unrest resulting from the death of George Floyd. I will address those issues in next week's edition of the Good News. Regardless of what's happening in the world around us, let us as a church family remember that we are members of God's very own family, and we belong in God's family with every other Christian. And that, friends, is good news. I love you all and I miss you. We'll get together again next Thursday for more good news. And I'm looking forward to seeing many of you face to face this Sunday. Take care, everybody.